Microphone check. Check 1, check 2. Alright, looks like this review, because I've already done this ride once today, but you know, with my new camera setup with the shoe mount, cold shoe mount, and all that stuff to secure everything, I have to remember to plug in the USB dongle because it's no longer plugging directly into the USB port. So now it's got to go into the dongle. And apparently I went out and rode and did a narration and a review and all this good stuff and got no audio. That one's on me. It's unfortunately a side effect of having that particular audio setup. Ugh. Love how my wife puts 85 fucking boxes behind the bike so I can't get it in and out of the garage. I think we have just a dedicated box or a truck for Amazon. See if Johnny's home. Nope. So, I gotta remember, what are all the things I said earlier? Well, we had the original mishaps with the tune. Now, when I say, well, I don't know, what asshole spilled hydraulic fluid all over, like they were just walking around spraying that shit everywhere. What a dick. People are morons, I tell you. So anyway, Chris, man, thank you. Did a tremendous job. Oh, this thing sounds good, and it's got more mid-range punch, folks. Between just that, getting rid of 10, well, probably, yeah, about 10, 12 pounds of weight. And then dropping a better tune made for the freer flowing exhaust. Man, ooh, it's a spicy meatball, folks. This thing feels awesome. Now, when I first got the tune and got it back, I was very bummed. Not with Chris. Just there's a Yamaha has some annoying ways of doing things. If you haven't watched, you know, some of you have already watched the other video, so I'm reiterating things. Oh, it just wants to go crazy. Popping, crackling on D-cell. Got rid of the fuel cut eliminator, so now it's going with popping and crackling. I'm going to do the AIS block. I'm not going to get the block off plates. They're just a waste of freaking money and time. I'm going to pull the hose off the damn airbox and stuff a marble in it, and then it'll block the pair system. Or AIS or SI. It's all the same shit. Air injection, secondary air injection, all that kind of stuff. It puts fresh air from the airbox as a hose, goes through a solenoid into the exhaust manifold to dump fresh air into the exhaust to make the exhaust look cleaner to emissions testing than it is. And that's what causes all that extra popping and crackling and stuff, which doesn't sound bad. I don't like it when I've still got the cats in there, because I'm like, oh, there's popping and crackling, that's gas detonating in the exhaust, and might put extra carbon and choke up the cat after a while, which will hurt performance. So I normally don't do that, but now that I've got the cat gone, yeah, that was just like 25% throttle, and the first just up. Even second gear, man. Second gear is crazy. Third gear is still pulling the front end up. I don't think that's a cop car. Nah. But, man, this thing is spicy now. And there's definitely some more power there. There's more urgency to the throttle, but also just the sound. third gear just wants to run. Woo! Oh man, this thing sounds badass. Feels amazing. Are people still saying amazeballs? If so, it's a whole lot of that. But yeah, so we had problems initially with the tune, not with Chris's work, man. Chris is the man. Love dealing with that guy. He's such a chill, down-to-earth guy. Guy's a freaking multi-world record holder, drag racer, and builder. And he's just so chill and humble, and just, you know, a lot of the things I liked about working with Huey when he was in Georgia. Personality's a little different, but in some ways they're very similar to their approach to things. Just very approachable guys. There's an MT-10 over there. Oh, that's an MT-03. No, maybe that is a 10. That's a 10. Sounds like a 10. Anyway, so Chris worked his magic, came home, put the ECU in, and and it wasn't Chris's fault. It's these new damn Yamahas. Everything works on a CAN bus system. Basically, everything's networked, and all the devices have their own addresses, and they're communicating back and forth in real time, because you got traction, you got wheelie control, you got slide control, rear lift mitigation, engine braking. All these systems have sensors that rely on each other, and so if any one of them breaks or malfunctions, the other ones might break. And these are safety systems. These are what you thinking that there's going to be traction control, or you thinking there's going to be ABS, and you hammer the brake and lock the front and tuck it, you go down. You might get hurt, you might get killed, you don't know. Depends on where and how and all that stuff. You go into come out of a turn without your traction control, and all hell can break loose. Spin up the tire and high side yourself into a tree. So what they do is, when you flash this, when it's in the bike, it's not a problem, and on most bikes it's not a problem, but on the new Yamahas, if the ECU, whenever you power up the ECU, it goes onto that CAN bus, onto that network, and it's like, hey, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? It does a self-diagnostic check, make sure all the safety systems are working properly, giving the right signals, voltage, making sure they're present, all that shit. And when you take the ECU out of the bike, to flash it on the workbench, on a test bed, you got to power it up to flash it, but it's not on your bike's network. None of your stuff's there. So it logs in, and it's like all the sensors, the crank position sensor, the throttle, like everything is electronic now. Nothing's there. And the ECU freaks the hell out. So then you flash it, you put it back, and the first time you turn the bike on, there's just nothing but errors. And so now it used to be, if you just cycled it on and off a couple times, it'd go, oh, everything's there, I guess everything's fine. Now, I think probably as a precaution, so that, being that these are safety systems, and on a powerful bike like this, you can quickly put yourself on the ground, they want you to, go to the dealer, get it checked out. Oh, that sound is just amazing. It's just so much power now, man. You just throw third gear, downhill. Pulled the wheel up in second, it put it back down, and then I shifted into third, and even facing downhill, picked the front end up again. 80 or 90 down a hill. Oh, this thing is stupid. And the sound coming out of the back. I'm sure there's flames shooting out from that popping, but I may disable some of that. I don't mind some of the popping and crackling, but anyway, so yeah, so anyway, I had my code, bought a little ODB port scanner tool, wouldn't delete them. It would see all the codes. I'm like, great, delete, can't delete, fudge. So then I go get a nice one, plug it in, sees all the codes, hit erase, can't erase. Finally, TJ pointed me in the right direction using the one I actually used for the Triumph, the Bluetooth edition, and just using an app on my phone, and that actually got rid of them all. But then it still had me locked out of the dash in some of the settings, couldn't change ride modes. And in my head, I was like 95% sure that was not going to be a problem, that basically I was going to be able to go ride the bike in whatever mode it was stuck in, and after 20 miles or so, it'll see, oh, everything's there, the wheel speed sensors are communicating data, the front matches the back, everything looks fine, and it usually clears that. When I put my R1 on the dyno, it did that, because the front wheel's in a wheel chuck, the back wheel's spinning, and you cannot disable ABS on Euro 5 bikes. So the ECU says, hey, the front wheel speed sensor's not working. Back wheel's spinning at 190 miles an hour on the dyno, and the front ain't doing shit. There must be a problem. And because it's dialed into, you know, safety systems to keep you from dying, it goes, get out of your own fucking lane, retard. Put your phone down. Oh, that acceleration is savage. Oh, a little bit of gravel. Get around that. Little head shake because it's picking up the front end and bouncing off a lumpy pavement. This thing is just amazing. Jesus Christ. And it's not placebo from the extra noise. The amount of wheeling and just the lunge of this thing has absolutely picked up some goddamn power. Jesus. I've got to get this thing on the dyno to see what it's doing. So, anyway, normally you got to ride it. And I've even seen guys like putting their bike on the rear stand to like put it in gear with the engine just idling, so the back wheel's just spinning at like 4 miles an hour to like spray lube on the chain. And even that, the back wheel turning but not the front, would throw the ECU into a fucking hissy fit and then have to go ride the bike for a while to unlock the dash and get back into the ride modes. Well, when I installed the exhaust, I guess because I've cycled the goddamn thing on and off a bunch of times, eventually it just kept seeing the sensors there and goes, okay, I guess everything's fine now. So I guess, you know, after the 20th on-off cycle, it was like, all right, we're good now. So when I put the pipe on, I just happened to push the button. I'm like, everything just worked. And it's working now. And boy, is it working. Jesus. This thing pulls. I'm just going to, all right, so we're at like 5,500 RPMs. Woo! Oh man, this thing is just insane. Not even giving it full throttle, man, because you got to hang on. And so then when the front comes off the ground, sometimes you pull, you know, you're hanging on to the bars and you're being pitched back. You end up pulling the bar a little more to one side than the other. And that's where you get that head shake. The front end gets a little crooked, and then when the systems put the front tire down, it might hit down slightly at an angle. And so when it wants to snap it straight, that's where you get a little bit of that head shake. But steering damper's working overtime today. But holy shit, the power is just... This is one of the most fun bikes I've had, man. I cannot wait to put like a K-Tech or Olin shock on the back and revalve the front. Get it up to almost like where an SP level would be. I know the SPs now are electronic, but you know what I mean. Get it up to that next level. The handling on this pretty much is telepathic as it is. But that rip, man, it just wants to go. You hit the gas and it just lunges. It's got this almost V-twin-ish torque. Not at, all right, so what I want to do is I got to get this on Chris's dyno because I want the run files. I don't care about the chart. I want the files so I can plot my own charts with the software. I've done this with most of my bikes. Don't care what the number is, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's high 140s at the wheel. Of all the bikes that I've had, this feels the most like, I don't want to say my Tuono, because the Tuono made 172 at the wheel. It was a little bit faster, but it also was a half fairing bike. It had a different feel to it. Tuono is still one of my all-time fave bikes. Dean still got one, Ken still got one. They're brilliant. I'm not in any way saying this bike's better. It's not. But as far as the way the power is built and it feels from the seating position, this is more like, it's more like the Speed Twin, but this blows away any Speed Twin I've ever owned. Those were all in the mid, 120s or something at the wheel. And this will blow the Speed Twin, other than the new 1200, away. This feels more like my Ducati Street Fighter 1098. Now that only redlined to 10.5, this is 11.5, so this revs a little more. That motor was a little bit bigger. It was 1098 cc's versus 998, but it was a twin versus a V4, twin versus inline 4. But this inline 4 is a cross-plane crank, which gives you more of a twin or V4 torque and power delivery. So they're very different, but they're very similar in a lot of ways. I was giving it not even half power, not even half throttle, and that thing just and rides out a wheelie. Sweet Jesus, this thing is fun. It was not doing that stock. It was doing some of that, but it was not this fast. So that little bit of weight savings, but clearly whatever map, he unrestricted the stock map and I had the stock pipe, and that did make a difference up top. I don't know that I'm making much more up top with this pipe, but I sure as shit am making more mid-range. The way this thing just flies off the ground in first, 2, 3, and even third gears is just insane. Whew. Holy crap. Now the difference between this and this, so was getting back to my Street Fighter 1098 was making around 148, 149 at the wheel and 80 something foot-pounds. So I bet you these are within a horsepower and a foot-pound of torque of each other. The delivery is going to be a little different. The Street Fighter will hit a little bit more like a hammer down low, where this has a little bit more of a hammer hit up top. But they're so close in power and character. The difference was the electronics. That thing didn't have ABS, had no traction control, had no ride modes. It had nothing. You had to be really freaking careful on that Street Fighter, because that V-twin power was a light switch. You'd have nothing, you'd give it a little gas, and all of a sudden all hell's breaking loose. I'm going to say that I think this is probably faster than the Ducati Street Fighter 1098. I mean, it doesn't feel like it is by the numbers, because they're going to put out about the same. But the way this thing just rushes and keeps going, that little bit of extra rev, there's something about it. That's just my impressions. I haven't had that bike in years, so who knows. But this thing sounds beast mode, and it feels beast mode. Third gear, approaching triple digits, and it's wanting to pick the front end up and just rip your arms out. It's just, this thing's great. Now the R1 that this is based on makes more power. In fact, at the wheel it makes like another 30 horsepower. It's a big difference. But I think this has a slightly stronger mid-range, and it has, because you're upright, you're into the wind just catching you. When you're leaned over, you don't have to like hold yourself into the seat. You're kind of, gravity's pulling you forward. When you're sitting upright and you have that kind of acceleration and the wind's hitting you right in the chest, you feel it a lot more. But sweet Jeebus, this thing is an animal now. I was not, honestly, I was like, oh, it's just going to sound a bit louder. And it does. I really wasn't expecting much more in the way of power. I was like, I'm getting most of the power out of just unrestricting the stock map by getting rid of the restrictions. And up top I probably was, but I saw him when he had this bike with this exact exhaust setup, same year everything, and putting on the mid pipe with the stock fueling lost 12 horsepower. Then he put the fuel in that, you know, when he dyno tuned it and picked up the 12 and picked up in the mid-range. I'll have to go look at the dyno charts from his runs and see where it was versus stock. But yeah, I mean, there's the best way to describe it is there's just way more urgency when you hit the gas and it wants to go, and it's just like really just, I mean, that wasn't even half throttle, that was a third throttle. I just goosed it to 30%, and that front end just boom comes up. It was not doing that before, not that violently. I'm in second gear at 6,700 RPMs. Oh. Third gear coming up again. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the AIS block off plate. I know people say, I gotta do the block off plate. No, you don't. You gotta remove a bunch of crap, lift up the tank, lift up the air box, get under there, install that shit. You don't need to do that. You don't need to spend money on block off plates ever. There's a hose on the back of the air box that feeds the AIS system. Pull the hose off, grease up a marble, stuff it in the hose, connect the hose back to the air box. Done. Lift the tank up just enough to get your hands up underneath there with a set of needle nose pliers. That's all you gotta do. (25–30% throttle). That was all I was giving it. This thing is stupid. Oh my god. Cam and Dean, when you ride this, all right, you rode it when it was, oh, there's a cop right there. Probably shouldn't have been doing wheelies. When you're doing, when you rode it, this thing was like completely bone stock, and you liked it. Wait till you ride this thing now. The power delivery is so much more in your face. It's making much more mid-range, and the sound, man, adds to that experience. I'm not sure how much the sound is picking up through the helmet microphone, you know, over my voice and stuff. I'll get down here a little bit and get on the gas. I'll stop talking. All right, second gear. Here we go. Sweet baby Jeebus. Oh. This is by far, I'm not gonna say it's the best bike I've ever owned. It's in the top 5 out of 34 bikes. That's pretty high praise. I would say, what else was up in this range? Not necessarily absolute power, just as far as the feeling and the exhilaration. Like, what other bikes made me feel like wow like this? I would say this. Well, overall, if we take into account handling and just the entire package and experience, I would say of all of my bikes, this is in the top 5. I would say the Street Triple RS, best bang for the buck, open naked sport bike you can buy today, bar none. This has a lot more motor and it's faster, but it's not that level of refinement as the Street Triple RS. I mean, with that bike you spend $2 grand less, and you get Ohlins and you get Brembos and all the good shit. But, and it's lighter and handles better. But you know, so I'd put this bike, Street Triple RS. I would have to say, I'd say you got to put the ZX14 on there. Just because there's no other motor out there like that. A normally aspirated 1.44 liter, almost 200 at the crank in its current form. And the level of comfort and just smoothness, that's got to be in my top 5. And so the remaining 2 spots, There's got to be one Ducati in there. I have a hard time picking between the... I think on that one, I would put... I mean, the Ducati 1198. So I had the Street Fighter 1098, but then I had the 1198 Superbike. Only 162 horsepower, but 93 foot-pounds of torque at the wheel. No electronics. And it was like 10 pounds heavier than an R6. Like, that was a scary bike to ride, because that power was like just being shot out of a goddamn cannon. And you hit the gas and it was like no ABS, no rider modes. Like, you better know what you're doing or you're gonna end up in really bad place. So from a sheer exhilaration and handling on that thing, holy shit, was that a cool bike. So that or the Panigale 959. Now the Panigale 959 wasn't scary fast. It was 136 horses at the wheel, but it was super light. The handling on that was so amazing, and it had a good electronics package. It revved. Man, what Ducati would I put on there? I've had a lot of Ducatis, but honestly, that's a tough call. I know for sure we got ZX14, this one. I wouldn't put my Speed Twin on there. Honestly, it's a very cool bike, but as far as like all the best bikes to ride, it can't hold. As much as I've done work to it, when you get on that bike, you can feel that that's a Bonneville. It doesn't handle anything like this, and this has suspension compared to the Öhlins and K-Tech on the Speed Twin. The chassis on this is just a, this is a sport bike chassis. So we've got a Yamaha, we've got a Cowie, we got a Triumph, we got the Street Triple RS. That's going to be the contingent from Triumph. You know what? I'm going to have to put the Tuono. The Tuono V4 1100 is going to have to be on the top 5 list. It's a super bike with handlebars. So that leaves one spot left. I don't think there's any other Cowies in a ZX6R. The Z900 was fun, but it's not top 5 material. CBRs, I've had Hondas, good bikes, not top 5 material. So it's gonna have to be, my KTM was good, but not top 5 material. I would have to say, all right, the remaining 2 spots would be the Ducati 1198 Superbike, because of how raw and just brutal that thing was. Yami Noob did a video recently about the Ducati 1098 and how, even though it's a 15-year-old bike, that bike is an expert-only bike. And the 1198 was just more, right? So just for being purely bonkers and being basically what was at the time a world superbike, a winning world superbike with blinkers on it, you got to put the 1198 on there. And then I think I would put a second Ducati on that list. I think I would put the first Panigale I had, because it was so smooth. It took the brutalness and brutality out of it. It didn't make anywhere near the power. It was 30 horsepower down on the 1198. But what it gave up in power, it brought back in telepathic handling, amazing brakes, a chassis that was so confidence-inspiring and so stable and so light and nimble. It took all the things that were brutal. Ultimately, the 1198 on a big track would probably be the faster bike, but it took a bike, knocked the power down enough that was still, 136 at the wheel on a basically, it's more than Gixxer 750. You're in that sweet spot of all you can use and a little bit more without it being so much that you're really having to hold back, otherwise kill yourself. So that would be my top 5 bikes of all time that I've owned. And two of those are naked, one's half naked, and 2 are fairings. So we got the Aprilia Tuono V4 1100RR, or if you got the factory. Triumph's going to have the Street Triple RS 765. Yamaha, for me, the R1 was amazing. But I between the two bikes now, having owned them, and the other, you know, the R1 not that long ago was a 2022. Between those two bikes, I'd take this as an everyday street. If I was only doing track days, yeah, I'd take the fairing. But other than giving up launch control and 30 horsepower way up top, I mean, where are you gonna? You're seeing how fast I'm going in third gear. I'm busting into triple digits. It just wheelies everywhere. This thing is just absolutely insane. The R1 was a little bit more crazy, but where are you going to use that on the street? You're going to have a hard time using this on the street, honestly. So where are we? I know I keep rambling, but Tuono, top 5, easily. Absolutely, got to have that Aprilia on there. This is going to be on my list. Street Triple RS, currently the best bang for the buck. If you want a mid-size, do it all. If you want to spend a little more and you're a bigger guy and you want more power, and you're willing to give up the Olins and shit, get this. And then for Ducati, we've got the absolute stupid, brutal, kick in the teeth 1198 Superbike. And then I really love the smoothness and refinement of that Panigale. That was my first Ducati that had really good electronics and had a quick shifter and ride modes, and you know, it revved. It was just smooth, really buttery smooth. So there you have it, everybody. This thing absolutely retarded now. This is everything I'd hoped for, man. Chris, thank you. I know I had some little bumps in the road here, none of it your problem, but getting this sorted, man, and now we're using your tune and your ECU flash with that pipe. Holy shit, this thing is fun. Just absolutely crazy. So there you have it. That's the ride review for this bad boy with the new Leo Vinci. See you later, Leo. It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. We'll talk to you guys later. Throw some questions in the comment section.